What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news and updates. So initially we've got some updates from Bungie. They talk about known issues and give some info on bugs and glitches in the game, which as always there are plenty of those. On top of that though, this week Festival has launched and there are a couple of notes on that front. Plus Bungie teased that Season of the Witch isn't over just yet, so we've got some potentially interesting conclusions to the season's story. But additionally, we're going to round up some new comments from Joe Blackburn about how they're improving aspects of the game in the future. He talks about stasis, subclass tuning, new features like improved buff and debuff info in the UI, and there are a bunch of other items to round up today. So as always guys, I hope you enjoy the video, and if you do, a rating below is very much appreciated. But now let's get into it. And so first up here from Bungie, a quick heads up, and they've said, we're investigating an issue causing crashes when launching Destiny 2 through the Steam beta client. And so there's an option in the Steam settings to participate in the client beta. And Bungie have said players experiencing this issue are encouraged to opt out of the Steam beta, as that appears to be causing some problems. So if you have experienced any of those problems, it'll be worth deactivating that and restarting Steam to see if it solves your issue. Bungie have said though that if they get any further updates, they'll provide those via Bungie Help. So just something to keep in mind on that front. Up next though, it wasn't the smoothest start to Festival of the Lost for the year, when unfortunately Bungie had to extend the downtime, so of course it may not have affected everyone, but for a moment there it was Festival of the Lost contact with Destiny servers. But now the event is of course live. As always, these seasonal events are fairly self-explanatory. Visit the vendor, and of course head to the Eververse store. A couple of additional quick festival updates though. Firstly, players have pointed out that it looks like Bungie have removed the toothbrush from the game with today's update. These random toothbrush items were added back in 2019. They never had a use, but some players held onto them just in case. Although Bungie have now decided to remove them, so obviously there is no use. Give us your thoughts about that. Bungie Help also offered an update about Headless Ones, and they said, we're currently investigating an issue where defeating Headless Ones in haunted sectors aren't counting towards the Heads Will Roll event challenge. But to mitigate the issue, players can defeat Headless Ones in the legendary version of these haunted sectors to gain progress towards the challenge. So just keep in mind progress isn't working in normal Lost sectors, but we can get that done in the legendary version instead. Quick update on some of those Eververse items though. As always, we did cover all of the Eververse stuff available for Silver and Bright Dust during the event, but just to quickly point out, if anyone fancies spending Silver, there will be Bright Dust options to purchase things like the Morna, which is a really cool new exotic sparrow. We don't know when all of the items will be available for Bright Dust, but we can at least tell that there will be that Bright Dust option during one of the weeks in the store. On top of that though, there's the Stygian Steed, another pretty cool exotic sparrow there. That'll be available for Silver and it'll be in a bundle, but importantly at some point during the event it'll be available for Bright Dust too. So maybe hold off on spending that silver initially. There's also the Spinneret shell. That one will sell for 2850 Bright Dust at some point, as will the Heart-powered shell. And there are some other cool exotic ships like the extraterrestrial vehicle, the sort of UFO ship right there, and finally the Fairy Tale flight as well. So just keep in mind, while they will appear in the store for silver, they're also going to come up for Bright Dust. We can now also see the icon for things like the Memento from Festival. This can be earned as a rank reward, but also has chances to drop from the eerie engrams that are coming from Festival. Although in order to access the Memento, we do have to complete the Twilight Triumph. The objectives for this are hidden, but players have figured out what we need to do, so Destiny Bulletin shared. Firstly, we need to complete the Fallen Saber Strike with the Clovis Bray Mask equipped. And then the second step is to get 100 kills on Neomuna with the Nimbus Mask equipped. And then finally, we need to get 25 finishers in Legend Haunted sectors with the Tormentor Mask equipped. And then we can unlock the Triumph, which grants us access to that new Memento. So obviously not too bad to get done, and the Memento shader itself results in these super black weapon skins. So let us know your thoughts about that one. But also Bungie decided to make all of the base shaders for the weapons from Festival pink. So of course there's the newer Cosmic Grenade Launcher, but also Macabre, Jurassic Green, and Horror Story have had a bit of an update visually as well. And we've got a separate video with weapon perks which you can check out if you want to see the potential roles. But those are going to be about all of the updates I can do on Festival this year, as I am away from home for a couple of days. Either way, let us know your thoughts on the slightly updated event down below, and good luck on the hunt for any of the rewards if you are playing this week. Up next though, another mention related to the update today. And it would appear that Bungie have updated the perk descriptions for a bunch of exotics, but it looks like these are updates that are actually supposed to be coming later in the season in another patch, or indeed in Season 23, when Bungie have outlined that they will be doing more exotic armor updates. And so while the descriptions have been updated, the exotics themselves don't actually have the functionality listed yet. So I guess overall it gives us a preview of the changes that are coming next season. So Volden shared that for Stompies, it increases sprint speed and slide distance, and improves high jump, jump, strafe jump, and triple jump, and we can take less damage from combatants when airborne. Then for Shards of Galanor, throwing knife final blows decrease the cooldown of your super, and hits and final blows with Blade Barrage will return super energy after the super ends. Then there's Mechanir Trick Sleeves. This increases sidearm airborne effectiveness, ready speed, and reload, but when critically wounded, swapping to a sidearm reloads it and increases its damage. While the effect is active, sidearm final blows reload the weapon and extend the effect's duration. Plus for Celestial Nighthawk, precision final blows reduce the cooldown of your super, and this modifies Golden Gun to fire a single high damage shot. And finally with Syntheseps, when you're surrounded, we gain an increase to melee and super damage, as well as improved weapon handling and reload speed. And finally for Karnstein Armlets, melee and finisher final blows instantly grant cure and provide restoration for a short time. So we can see on the most part, Bungie are adding a couple of additional effects to those exotic pieces. Once again, they aren't actually doing this in the game just yet, but they are carrying the descriptions for a future version of themselves, I suppose. So the festival patch somehow managed to leak some exotic changes coming in Season 23, and let us know your thoughts on any of those in the comment section. Up next though, a couple of final things to discuss here. And following the conclusion of the main season quest, players were a little bit disappointed in the way that the end of the season was presented. But of course, in some seasons, the initial quest will come to an end, but later on, there'll be an actual sort of seasonal finale. And we have some possible hints to that from Bungie here, and they've said Eris Morn is the strongest hive there has ever been. But importantly, they say Season of the Witch isn't over yet. And presumably that doesn't refer to the season itself simply not ending. But it appears that it's more of a story tease, suggesting that there is yet more to come. So whether these things roll out via the Embargo engine, or whether there'll be a sort of impactful end of season event, cutscene, mission, or something of that nature before we head into Season 23, it isn't entirely clear which variant of that we'll get, but the indication from Bungie is that there is more to come. So give us your thoughts about that down in the comment section. And the final thing I wanted to touch on here today are a few comments from Joe Blackburn, the game director for Destiny 2, who of course streamed playing through some content a few days back. And there aren't any absolutely huge reveals in here, but there are some interesting bits of discussion. So firstly, players pointed out that there are long gaps between featured raids and dungeons. And of course, each week we get one featured that is farmable, but that does mean there's a pretty long gap. And for instance, Root of Nightmares has only been featured once this season so far. So Joe Blackburn said they are looking into the rollouts of master content and player-elected difficulty and some of the stuff that they're doing in the final shape, indicating that it's possible they could feature more content or change up the rotation in a way that means various activities come up more frequently. So that's an interesting possibility. But also they discussed the Asa's Gift and Deck of Whispers style buffs for the activities we've had in the past couple of seasons. And he said that they're not done with experiments for that yet, but we will see a new evolution of that kind of system in Season 23. So it'll be interesting to see how Bungie continue to roll that out. But they also spoke about Banner of War for Titans, and he recognised that yes, it is very, very strong, but he pointed out that support subclasses for Titans are still very, very popular. So while Banner of War is really strong, at the moment, it isn't absolutely dominating the scene. And so while they are considering sandbox tuning for it, he said it isn't something that they want to hit super hard, super quickly. He also pointed out that for Weavewalk, they are aware about the 2 fragment slot discussion in the community and expanding that in the future. But there was also a discussion about stasis, and we are getting a stasis update in Season 23, but he pointed out they are focusing on tuning initially instead of introducing new fragments. So they're not expecting to do that in the immediate future, but they want to get the existing stuff to a better and more interesting place first. Although he did indicate that the next updates for Strand are coming in Season 23 as well, where we are more likely to get new fragments. So that's something else which is interesting to look out for next season. But he said they're also continuing to work on the buff UI, so that left-hand side of the screen that shows buffs, debuffs, active perks and things like that. And there's a work in progress right now to kind of totally revise how all of that stuff is displayed. But he said that armor and encounter buffs will be on different sides of the screen, so some buffs will now potentially be displayed on the right-hand side as opposed to just the left. And he indicated that they think this will be pretty disorienting for players the first time they get into the game, but it's going to require a little bit of adjustment over time. So just some light hints towards what they're working on there. But the final couple of things here, and they speak about Checkmate in the Crucible. They say it's performing really well, and they want to continue to tune the game mode to ultimately expand it into various playlists. So hopefully in a few months' time at the latest, we'll see Checkmate as an actual PvP game mode that's featured outside of Crucible Labs specifically, which of course isn't necessarily where the bulk of the Destiny player population is. So Checkmate will ultimately make its way into core playlists, which is cool. He also spoke a little bit about internal development and the fact that devs can play on any retail account. So a dev could essentially pick one of your accounts and decide to play it for the day, or indeed they could do the same thing with someone like Datto. But he said as well, they normally play on their own retail accounts when inside test servers. So they essentially have a copy of their own account that they can play internally when they're testing the game and playing future content and stuff like that. There were a few other pretty interesting insights in there as well, so I'll link a thread rounding that up down below. And shout out to Colonial Dagger on Reddit for listing this stuff. But for today, guys, that's what we have to speak about. So as always, I hope the video's been interesting. If it has, a rating below really does help us out on the channel. Plus, be sure to get subscribed and I'll keep you posted with more Destiny content. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in, and whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.